All right, so today we're diving into some pretty murky waters.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about all the drama surrounding Destiny,
Mhm.
the online political commentator,
Mhm.
and the fallout with like some other big names online, especially Abba.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and you said over Abba's YouTube video, Destiny Bridge burning,
All right.
and some other articles and discussions and all that.
I think this is a fascinating case really because it really shows, the pitfalls of online fame, right? When you have someone whose private life and public persona clash, that's when things get really interesting.
Yeah, and in this case, it's a wild ride for sure. Abba just comes out swinging. In his video, he lays out some heavy accusations against Destiny, saying that Destiny's been recording women in intimate moments without their consent
Wow.
and sharing those recordings. He even says Destiny shared these with a 19-year-old he was involved with online.
Those are some serious accusations, especially that non-consensual recording and distribution of intimate content. I mean, you're talking about privacy, you're talking about consent, legal consequences.
Yeah, it's a whole legal and ethical nightmare. And it gets even more complicated because one of the women involved is now suing Destiny.
Oh, wow.
But setting aside the legal stuff for a second, Abba's video is just dripping with disappointment and frustration.
Yeah.
He calls Destiny's dating patterns like dysfunctional and even straight up toxic.
And you can tell that Abba feels betrayed, right? He talks about how he's been warning Destiny about this stuff for years, publicly and privately, but Destiny just keeps ignoring him.
Yeah, he even uses that phrase, fuck around and find out,
Mm.
which I think really sums up his feelings right now.
Hmm.
Do you think this lack of sympathy from Abba resonates with others in the community?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure, but I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, right? Like when you keep warning someone about their behavior and they don't listen and then they face the consequences, you just got to step back.
You just got to watch it all burn.
Yeah.
And Abba actually goes into detail about specific conversations he had with Destiny, including one where he straight up calls Destiny's lifestyle self-destructive.
Mm.
And Destiny pushes back. He says he's living a fulfilling life regardless of the consequences.
That's such a fascinating clash of values, right? Destiny is all about personal freedom and pleasure above all else. And Abba is like, no, dude, you got to think about ethics and how your actions affect other people.
It's like they're speaking two totally different languages.
Oh, yeah.
And then Abba goes even further, calling out Destiny's preference for dating mentally ill women.
Oh.
And get this, Destiny's justification is that it's fun.
Oh, no.
That's a rough one.
That's gotten a lot of criticism, and rightfully so. I mean, Abba calls it a moral failing on Destiny's part, especially knowing the potential for harm in those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, can someone really engage in relationships they know might be harmful
Yeah,
and still consider themselves to be an ethical person?
it really raises questions about their judgment, for sure.
And for Abba, the final straw seems to be this revelation about Destiny allegedly sharing intimate content without consent. It suggests a real disregard for the well-being of the people he's involved with, and a willingness to engage in some really shady behavior when he thinks no one's watching.
I mean, that's a huge deal because it really impacts how we view Destiny's trustworthiness,
Yeah.
right? If he's willing to disregard consent in one area, can we trust him to uphold ethical standards in other areas?
Especially given his political aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
Abba points out the hypocrisy of Destiny's whole anti-misogyny arc, considering his personal behavior. Like, how can you be a credible advocate against misogyny while engaging in relationships that might perpetuate harmful stereotypes?
Yeah, that's a huge contradiction. And Abba actually argues that this could become a liability for Destiny if he wants to pursue a career in politics.
So it's not just about this immediate drama, it's about the long-term implications for Destiny's credibility and his influence.
Exactly. It all comes down to this fundamental question. Can someone genuinely advocate for social or political change while living a life that contradicts those values?
That's a question we'll definitely be exploring further as we continue this deep dive. But first, let's take a closer look at some of the power dynamics at play in these online communities and how they might have contributed to this situation.
So Abba brings up a really interesting point about power dynamics in these online spaces.
Yeah.
Like he's suggesting that Destiny, with his huge platform, might have a lot of influence over the women he interacts with.
That's an interesting thought. Do you think these women might feel pressured to engage with Destiny in ways they wouldn't normally, just because he's got this status and online reach?
It's definitely possible. I mean, Abba kind of hints at that, right? Like some of these women might feel compelled to participate even if they have doubts, just because of Destiny's position and the attention he can give them.
Yeah, it's that whole power corrupts thing. And it's even more messed up when you consider that Destiny actually brags about this dynamic. He uses it to attract more women.
That's the really troubling part. It's like he's flaunting this exploitation of his position,
Hmm.
which is ethically really questionable.
Yeah, it's a reminder that online fame can really distort reality. And this whole thing seems to have been a wake-up call for Abba. He even compares the online community to a zoo full of freak animals.
Wow.
He says he used to find the online world entertaining, but now he sees it as unhealthy and ultimately bad for his personal and professional life.
Sounds like a major reality check. Like he's realizing he got caught up in something that goes against his own values.
Yeah, like the constant drama and spectacle desensitized him to behaviors he now sees as harmful and exploitative.
Yeah, I think that happens to a lot of people who spend a lot of time in these online spaces. The lines between what's acceptable and what's not can get really blurry.
And for Abba, this realization leads to a big decision. He's cutting ties with Destiny and his whole platform.
That's a bold move considering how close they were.
Yeah, it shows how disillusioned he is with Destiny's actions and the whole culture of the online community. He's basically saying the risks are too high.
And remember, this is coming from someone who consistently defended Destiny, even when other people were criticizing him.
So this is a huge loss for Destiny, both personally and professionally. It makes you wonder, could this inspire others to do the same? Could this be a turning point in how these online communities deal with these situations?
It's possible. I mean, Abba leaving could give others the courage to speak out or to reevaluate their own relationships and allegiances. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
So what does this all mean for Destiny in the long run? I mean, his reputation has definitely taken a hit. He's facing serious accusations, a lawsuit, and now he's lost a close friend and collaborator.
It's going to be tough for him to come back from this. This whole controversy has raised doubts about his judgment, his ethics, his ability to be a credible voice for social change. Rebuilding trust with his audience and staying relevant as a political commentator is going to take a lot of work.
It's a reminder that in this age of social media, the lines between your personal life and your public image are super blurry.
Yeah, every action, every choice you make is amplified and scrutinized.
And when your actions don't match the values you claim to uphold, the consequences can be pretty severe.
It all goes back to that question Abba raised right. Can someone really champion social or political change while living a life that contradicts those values?
It's a tough question. But Abba's decision to walk away from Destiny speaks volumes.
He's drawing a line in the sand. He's saying, this is where I stand, and I'm not going to compromise my principles anymore.
So now we got to see how the rest of the online community responds. Will they prioritize the drama and entertainment? Or will they demand accountability and integrity?
It's a test of their priorities, for sure, and it raises a bigger question about the responsibility of content creators, especially those with big platforms. Do they have a moral obligation to think about how their actions might affect their followers, especially those who might be more vulnerable or impressionable?
That's a heavy question. After all, with a large platform comes a lot of influence. Content creators can shape opinions, beliefs, even behaviors.
Exactly. It's not just about entertainment anymore. It's about recognizing the impact they have on their audiences and using that influence responsibly.
This whole situation with Destiny is a reminder that actions have consequences, and those consequences can spread far beyond our immediate circle.
It's an important lesson for everyone, both online and offline. As we navigate this increasingly complex digital landscape, we need to have these conversations about ethics, responsibility, and the impact of our choices.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dives into the Destiny controversy, what are some key takeaways our listeners should think about?
Maybe it's a chance to examine their own relationships and online interactions. Are they surrounding themselves with people who share their values? Are they holding their friends accountable for their actions, even when it's uncomfortable?
That's a good point. We often get caught up in the excitement of online communities without thinking about the potential downsides.
Maybe it's also a reminder to be more critical of the content they consume and the influencers they follow. Don't be afraid to question their motives, their actions, the messages they're promoting. Ultimately, it's up to each of us to decide what we're willing to tolerate, both online and offline.
And to create a digital space that reflects the values we want to see in the world. This has been a fascinating but kind of unsettling exploration of online culture power dynamics and the consequences of unchecked behavior.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the internet is a powerful tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to use it wisely and ethically.
Yeah, it really is a wake-up call, this whole situation with Destiny,
Yeah.
It really shows you the responsibility we all have as consumers of online content. We can't just blindly follow someone because they're entertaining or because we agree with their opinions.
Right, it's not just about entertainment.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
to think critically about their actions and hold them accountable.
Especially when they're trying to influence our thinking on, important social and political issues. It's like, if someone's personal life is a complete mess, how can we trust their judgment on complex stuff like policy or governance?
Exactly. There has to be some consistency between
Right.
their words and their actions. If there's a disconnect, it makes you question their integrity.
Yeah.
Can they really be a credible voice? And Abba really hit the nail on the head when he talked about the need for higher standards in these online communities, especially when it comes to professional conduct and how men interact with women. It's not enough to just talk about progressive values. You have to actually live them.
Yeah, words without action are meaningless. And unfortunately, we see that disconnect a lot online. It's all performative activism and virtue signaling instead of real change.
Like, people are more worried about appearing woke than actually doing the work
Hmm.
to, dismantle harmful systems and behaviors.
Yeah, and sometimes it feels like the drama and the spectacle just distract us from the real issues.
So what can we do as individuals to create a healthier online environment? I mean, it feels kind of overwhelming.
Well, I think for starters, we can be more careful about who we follow and support online. Don't be afraid to unfollow people or call them out if they're doing something harmful or hypocritical. Support the people who are genuinely trying to make things better.
Right? It's about putting your money where your mouth is, supporting creators and communities that align with your values, and speaking up when you see something wrong.
Exactly. And I think it's also about being more empathetic and understanding in our online interactions. Remembering that there are real people behind those usernames and our words can have a real impact.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that when you're caught up in the heat of the moment.
Sometimes just a little bit of kindness and compassion can make a big difference.
We can create a more positive and productive online space by, promoting respect and accountability.
Right. It's not about silencing people or creating an echo chamber. It's about setting boundaries and having healthy conversations.
It's about holding each other to a higher standard and working together to create an online world that reflects the values we want to see in the real world.
Well said.
This deep dive into the destiny controversy has been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's really shown us the complexities of online culture and the importance of personal responsibility.
It's also a call to action. We can't just sit back and watch these things happen. We all have a role to play in shaping a more ethical and equitable online world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you leave with a better understanding of these issues and a commitment to making the internet a better place for everyone.